Good afternoon and welcome to another in our series of TalkSports. Well, it is our Saturday sports special to be exact. And this weekend, we have a special guest with us. In fact, it is the first time in as many as probably 15 plus years that this person will be making what is known as a public appearance, speaking publicly for the first time since the relinquishing the role of president of the then Grenada Amateur Athletic and Cycling Association, what is now known as the Grenada Athletic Association. I'm speaking of no other person than Mr. commonly known as Bobby, but his full name is Robert Benjamin. It's Robert Bobby Benjamin. Let's say good afternoon and welcome to Mr. Bobby Benjamin. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Michael, it is such a pleasure. This was very unexpected, but it is a pleasure to be here. I have looked at a couple of the programs that you've had in the past, and I've been very impressed with the programs. And let me say up front, Michael, that I would like to congratulate you on what this job that you've undertaken, because in the circumstances of having a full-time job and family and so on. And this, as I understand and I know very well, this kind of activity takes a lot of time. So um, it's a great effort, and I congratulate you. And I hope people continue for a while.
Thank you very much. And yes, I do appreciate that because it takes quite a while, as you say, trying to balance everything, my full-time job, my family, and, everything else, it takes a while. But it's nice to have you here, Mr. Benjamin. And I am certain it's a pleasure for so many people to see you for the very first time in a very long time. And first of all, Bobby, how you have been coping. In fact, I know you're not in Grenada, so probably you can tell our viewers where exactly you are and how you have been coping with the pandemic.
Well, Michael, I have been in Trinidad uh, since uh, 2004. After Ivan actually drove me away from Ivan drove me away from Grenada in 2004. Um, and since then, I've been living in Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, well, it's so nice to hear that, Mr. B. And we have quite a lot to discuss over the next 2 hours. But in particular, let's look at and probably even before going into your tenure as the president of the Athletic Association in Grenada. You know, what so got you involved, Mr. B, in running the affairs or being part of athletics in Grenada?
Well, Michael, all my life as a young man, and I've always been interested in servicing, doing, offering my services to whichever group would have required it since presentation days as a presentation boy. I came out of that. I was in CYO. I was in various other mostly religious organizations in the Roman Catholic Church, um, Legion of Mary and stuff like that. But I went away for a while, studied, and came back. And I came back here to the Caribbean in 1988. 1988, I came back. And I was working at the time with the GIDC, the Grenada Industrial Development Corporation. I worked there for a while. Then I went into I joined the Grenada Development Bank, and there I was doing a project, a United Nations project, um, involved with developing a cadre of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, because my postgraduate work was in business management. So I was trying to develop a cadre. You may have heard about the organization. It's called SEDU, SEDU, Small Enterprise Development Unit. But while I was at SEDU, of course, I'd formed, coming back to Grenada, I met some of my old friends and so on. Joseph Charter, this deceased, Charlie George, a number of people. And Charlie, in fact, was the one who encouraged me to get involved in the Athletic Association. I have to thank Charlie. So Charlie said, he said, Bobby, I mean, would you mind, helping out in the association, the GWMCA as it was then? And I said, yes, of course, I would try to help. So I was a peripheral, I was involved in a peripheral way at first. And the election was coming up in 1991, 1992. And I was encouraged to, to become, to accept the post, well, not accept, but to put up myself for the post of first vice president, which I did. And the slate, George Gotti Robinson was the president. He was the person vying for the president of the association. And Gotti became the president, and I was the first vice president. But Michael, I'll come back to that a little bit more, but my becoming president in 1991-92 was in pretty bizarre circumstances, if I could say so myself. Gotti had been elected, but for some reason, his own only Gotti could explain that, and it's a personal decision. Only Gotti could explain why suddenly he decided that he didn't want to be president anymore. So under the Constitution, the first vice president stepped in for the rest of the term, the rest of the 2 years. In those days, it was 2 years. So I was called up, I was called to duty as the president, acting president in a sense, because I was the first vice president, and that is how it started. That is how it started.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you mentioned the name Charlie George, and it's Charlie who succeeded you, I think.
Yes, indeed, Charlie succeeded. Well, Charlie and I have been very good friends over the years. So, because as you may recall, Charlie George and I worked very closely as president and vice president at the during the carnival of 1991, 92. So Charlie and I worked very successfully together with Carnival, and I, I didn't hesitate when Charlie asked me to put my hat in the ring. He was very busy at Huggins at the time, and so that is the connection. Charlie and I go back a good way. Although we went to the different schools, the GBSS and presentation. Well, when I got to know Charlie better when we formed the club, over 40s club, the 630 club we called it. Now the reasons is a very intriguing title and name, and lots of people over the years have wondered why we called it that. But it's a very personal. It's an in joke. It's an in joke. So Charlie and I got to know each other very well during that period of time with the organizing over 40s football and all over Grenada. And Joe Charter, deceased, was one of the kingpins in organizing that. So, that's how Charlie and I became friends.
Mr. Benjamin, concerning track and field in Grenada, it's for many, there are those who believe that the the successes and the exploits have just begun, you know, and not recognizing that there are those who basically would have blazed the trail in years gone by. And, sadly, though, we do not have that much of, history and documentation of those who would have, made that achievement or made those achievements in the years gone by. But for someone who has been, studying that, who have interacted with some of those even before they have, left us, you know, who are some of the people you'll want us to know who, in the early days, and I say early because we're looking at probably the 40s and the 50s and even the 60s to some extent, or what you know or what you can share with us, who would have been out there representing Grenada and making Grenada proud?
One of the first names I would like to call, and he's not really, he was an athlete for a short while, but Nag Hurley. Nag Hurley was one of the uh, the early coaches, and Nag is known as a top class coach in Indian athletics. Um, um, but for me, as a boy from Gore, grew up in Gore, St. John, and my first glimpse at athletics would have been at the Empire Games, uh, otherwise known as the 24th May Games. That's in celebration of the birthday of the Queen. So, as a 10-year-old in 1952, I did get my grandmother allowed me to go to Cumber Peters Park. Well, no, it was not. Sorry, it was Windsor Park. It was Windsor Park, named after the royalty, and Duchess of Windsor, or whatever it was. I said it was Windsor Park, and later on became Cumber Peters Park. And at that sport, I got my baptism because the enthusiasm that I saw for track and field. And I must say, I've since got to understand that sport is an integral part of Grenadians. It's in our psyche. Sport is in our psyche. And so that in that first game, one of the things I remember is the cycling events, because in those days cycling was big in the region. And Grenada had a couple of the best cyclists in the region. The Perrot brothers, and those the older people who might be listening to that will remember Sam Perrot and his brother. And Sam Perrot and his brother won almost every single cycling event that was held at Windsor Park in those days. And so we're talking about the 50s, 1952. And the Perrot brothers, they brought glory to Grenada because the Empire Games attracted people from all over the region. Because you got to remember, there were not many international sporting events. So people came from all over the region, especially the cyclists. I mean, from Santo Domingo, from all of these people and all the Central American countries who excel in cycling. And they sent a number of their people. But the Perel brothers cleaned up. I mean, they beat everybody who came to ride in Grenada on the grass track. And the event I remember from that day in 1952 was the Devil Take the Hindmost. Well, you know how exciting that is, Michael, in cycling. That the people who are lapped have to depart from the track, and people didn't want to be lapped. So it was a very very interesting, very exciting race. Um, so I remember at that first sports meet that I attended, I came back. I mean, I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled with the experience because what had also happened was that a couple of young Grenadian athletes, promising young athletes, Dorothy and Reginald Wilson. They came from famous Wilson family involved, who were always in sport. And there was a young man called Willie Julian, um, who were also very promising athlete. But Dorothy Wilson went on to dominate female sprinting in Grenada in both the 100 and 220 yards, 100 and 220 yards. In those days, Michael, we didn't have meters yet. So it was 100 yards, 220 yards. And Dorothy, for many years she dominated. And then the young man, Willie Julian became a policeman. And he he actually, for 4 consecutive years, he was the Victor Rome at the Royal Grenada Police Force Sports. And in fact, in 1960, he jumped a distance of 24 feet, Michael, at an inter-islands games. And that would have qualified him to enter into the Rome Olympics. I mean, just think about that.
That would have been Rome Olympics was in 1960?
1960.
Yeah. Yeah.
1960. Mike Agostini from Trinidad went to that. So it was quite a feat for this young man. But of course, Grenada not having an Olympic committee in those days, he could not have participated in the Olympics. But it sort of the next thing that happened, as far as I am aware, was the Whitsuntide Games. Now, a lot of the young people would have heard a little bit about the Whitsuntide Games because we revised it. We brought it back into play after many years during my tenure with the Whitsuntide Games. And the Whitsuntide Games had always been the kind of event that people from around the region sent their young athletes to attend because it was a good meet to send the fledgling athletes. So the young people they came to Grenada for the Whitsuntide Games, and they were weaned on that. They got nurtured by attending those games. But these games were established in the 1950s. 1950s, the Whitsuntide Games was established. And people like Nat Hurley and so would have had something to do with that. Now, understandably, it's been a local event, a Grenadian event. It was dominated by Grenadian athletes. I mean, who in fact, competed extremely well against the other people coming from the regions, especially the OECS and so on. So the names like Hugh Bain, 100 yards, 220 yards, long jump. Anthony Delilah Thomas, 124, 880, long jump. George Fletcher, the Fletcher brothers, George Fletcher and Finbar Fletcher, 100 yards to 220, long jump. And Finbar Fletcher was a remarkable javelin thrower. I mean, he would have won medals with the javelin in the setup that came afterwards. Alistair Clouden, that name is a well-known name in Grenada in sport. But
No disease.
Yeah, now deceased. Alistair was a first class, but he did 1, 2, and the 8 as well. But he was well known as for his 400 running. He was a great 400-meter runner, 440 yards. It was in those days. And then we had Charlie Zatopek Francis. Charlie Francis, call him. Well, I don't know why we call him Zatopek, but I think it was a pun on the it's a pun on the the name because, but you know, Grenadians, we like to poke fun at ourselves. And Zatopek, as you know, Michael, was a long distance runner. So to call us sprinters Zatopek was really poking fun. But he he developed into a very, 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 very fine sprinter. And then we had Robert Glean from Seters, 102. Simeon Green from the Wharf there, 440, 880. We had William Pablo Gittins. As we go here, a little bit more what Pablo Gittins are.
Yeah, I that's the name William Gittins is one.
William Pablo Gittins.
Right. Is one who I did an interview with many years ago while at the Grenada Broadcasting Network.
Because he had moved back to Grenada from England.
Right. And unfortunately, it got the entire production, the entire interview and.
You had a fire at the station?
No, not that time. It would have been Hurricane Ivan. It got destroyed with Hurricane Ivan. So all the archives with that lost, and that's the person I was always trying to. William Gittins.
Yes.
Pablo,
as we call him, Pablo, as all of us call him. Pablo was a naturally gifted athlete. Not only did he run track, brilliant, he was a footballer, represented Grenada in football. He was a cricketer, represented Grenada in cricket. He was represented on a team that was selected to go to England on the football team that was selected in the 60s, thereabouts. He was selected on a Caribbean team to go to England to play a number of games. But he was a really, really talented athlete. So that, but his pet events would have been the high and the long jump, and he also did the hurdles, the high hurdles. So he was what I would call the first multi-eventer from Grenada. He performed particularly well at the Texaco Southern Games. The Texaco Games became the most famous of the games in the region because the oil company operating from Palo Seco in Trinidad, they launched this event in the late 50s, 60s, early 60s. And Pablo Gittins was exceptionally good at the Southern Games. Twice he did the double. He did the high jump and long jump double twice. He won a gold medal in the hurdles. And his time of 53.8 seconds in the hurdles stood for many years as a national record in Grenada. But you would have found out all of those things from him. Michael.
Yes. He brought up some of those things, and in fact, I recall he had even some documentation as well. You know, Pablo had some documentation as well. Yes, you're correct about that.
So yeah, I mean, this guy was. We all looked up to him. I mean, he was the guy to look up to. He was the guy. I'll tell you. I'll just give you a little anecdote. Now, if somebody decided that they wanted, you know, the guys living on the iron. But Michael, you might be too young for that. But the older guys like myself, we were living on the iron there.
Yeah, certainly, I'm too young for that.
at the bottom of Market Hill, by Aeroplane's office there, and somebody decided that they wanted to have a race running up Market Hill, and out of idleness, and somebody said, "Well, let's see who could run up and down Market Hill, the fastest." And Pablo was there in his long pants and his ordinary clothes lineman. And the race started, and Pablo went up Market Hill like a meteor. I mean, he was up and down Market Hill before the first guy, the guy who came after him, got to the top of Market Hill. That's how remarkable he was, and that's a true story. And that's a true. I was there. So that is the nature of the guy. And his fitness was his thing. He was extremely fit because he also ran the 800 meters and the mile. Today it's 1500 meters. He won the 800 meters and the mile, and at GBSS he was a Victor, I think for quite some time while he was there. You also had a brother, a younger brother, George, who was excellent. So the Gittins family produced some wonderful athletes. Yeah, but Mr. Victor Ashby might have some records about William Gittins at GVSS, but he was the Victor Throne for quite a while, I believe. So that is one of the outstanding guys. Um, and so we come back to the other guys. I started to talk about Hubert and
But
like
something I wanted to ask you there. I mean, you call a lot of names. What, there were not any females, female athletes who excelled during those days?
no, that's an excellent question, Michael. That's an excellent question. It speaks more about the lack of participation by women in sport during the 50s. I mentioned the most outstanding one, Dorothy Wilson, but there were not many women, and of course, Michael, men in those days regarded sport, especially track and field, as a male thing. So I don't think the women were not encouraged to take part in athletics. So that would explain the absence of any female names among the people I'm calling.
But
So
the tide has turned, right? The tide has turned.
the tide has turned. I mean, today there are more women participating than men.
All right. Well,
Unfortunately,
and on that note, I want to basically tell you why I'm thinking the tide is turning, because here it is, the women. Dennis Williams is saying, "Hi, Mr. Bobby. Nice seeing you. It's been years." Um, then here is a Guelph girl saying, "Season's greetings, Bobby Benjamin and Michael Bascom. Every blessing for the new year. Really great seeing you, Bobby." That's Elizabeth Forsyth.
yes, yes,
And obviously, one of our most talked about female sprinter, Hazelland Regis Buckles, is saying, "Hello, Mr. Benjamin, and how are you? It's great seeing you." And she concluded by saying we had to change that. Of course, speaking about the women, at least changing that. So certainly the women have taken up their role.
yes,
You talking about in the 50s where there were few, women participating, to now
very,
where
very few.
women are dominating sports in Grenada to an extent.
And not only at the competitive level, but at the administrative level. Because as you mentioned, that Hazeland's name came up there. Mrs. Ferguson, who was the principal at the St. David's Catholic Secondary School. She was one of the stalwarts in athletics in Grenada. I mean, she was the matriarch in a way of sport as a principal who nurtured sport. I mean, sport was just as important as the academics for Miss Ferguson. So yes, women are taking over in large measure, and we'll come later on to Denise Williams, who is one of the women's stalwart coaches. But I'll come back to that later. So we also, I just mentioned a couple of other names. You had George Sandiford, who was an 800-meter runner. Frank Caesar from Carriacou, who was also a multi-eventer. He did 1, 2, 4 long. He didn't do the high jump, but he did the 800, 880 meters. He did but his event was the javelin. The javelin, he became, he made his mark at the Southern Games. He made his mark at the Southern Games with his javelin, and actually won the javelin event. I think about 1958. He won the javelin at the Southern Games. Um, so all of these guys have called, and of course the youngest of the lot would have been Stephen Amibi Bernard. You probably don't remember Amibi. You probably heard the name, but a lot of the other people, the older people listening would remember Stephen Amibi Bernard. I mean, I saw that man, that young man, run the fastest 440 yards in my life. I mean, he was just flying, Michael. I think he was the first athlete to run the 440 yards under 50 seconds. That was quite a feat in those days, because the people who went to the Empire Games and Commonwealth Games and so on, they were running, they were learning running high 50 point, 51 seconds, that kind of thing. He ran under 50 in Grenada, on the grass track at Queen's Park. And he, I would say, was definitely world class. He was world class. Hugh Bain, who ran 9.8 seconds um, at the Whitsunday Games, he would have that time would have taken him to the finals of the 100 yards at the British Empire and Commonwealth Games in 1954. Frank Caesar was also world class, and of course, young Amibi. I mean, these are all world class athletes. We produced these people during the 50s, and there's also, I mean, so William Gittins, I mentioned William Gittins, but there was um, also Donald Pierre. There's also Donald Pierre.
Well, yeah, I know Donald, and Donald would have been after these guys. But just before you're going to Donald Pierre, um, do you think that the during the 50s and 60s, if Grenada was a member of the IOC and those international athletic federations, that Grenada would have been able to win Olympic medals and such? I mean,
I will put it this way.
comparing some times and
So we would have held our own, Michael. We would not have been disgraced, because I said before, Hugh Bain was a top athlete. Anthony Thomas, the rider from River Road, he would have been the first multi-eventer, and he would have won a decathlon or an event like that. So and Pablo Gittins, of course, was the quintessential multi-eventer, and Pablo would have won a medal at these games. Um, so I think that I'm not saying, Michael, that we would have won, but I'm saying that we would not have been disgraced. I'm saying that we were going to be able to hold our own against the best performing at this time. For example, George Finbar Fletcher, the younger brother of George Fletcher. Finbar Fletcher was the top athlete in the region in the 60s, in the 102. He also competed at the Southern Games. He also competed at the Southern Games with distinction. So I don't, as I said before, this is a matter of conjecture, but I think these people would have done very well, because the Donald Pierre went on. Donald Pierre went on to do extremely well. In the not. I think he was a little bit disappointing, Michael, in the CAC, because of the promise that he showed in the CAC But he didn't continue to do as well as he would have wanted. But Donald Pierre and the young people listening to that, Donald Pierre ran the 4, 8, 15, 5,000 and held national records in each one of those. At one point, he had the national record in the 400 meters, the 800 meters, the 1500 meters, and the 5,000.
Didn't he also competed in the marathon?
Yes, but in the early days, Michael, you would have heard about that. We go up, people from Guelph had a race from Sates to town, virtually a marathon. I mean, in fact, I think that was more than 26 miles.
Yeah.
And he won that event time and time again. So people say is the fish broth and so on, from Guelph. But yeah, I mean, he was that good. He was that good. He was disappointing in the CSC, but he didn't come up as to scratch as they expected. But at the 1970 Commonwealth Games, he set the national record in the 1500 meters. And then at the Southern Games, um, he um, he won a bronze in the 1500 meters in 1972. Um, he also, but in 1973, I think Donald Pierre would like to regard his best victory as a victory he had against Fred Newhouse, the American Olympian. Fred Newhouse. He beat Fred Newhouse at the Southern Games in 1973. Now, I mean, this is history. And in 1977, Dante won silver medals in both the 400 meters and the 800 meters. So this is the caliber of athletes that we produced during this time. And to come back to Dr. Dunstan Campbell, Dunstan Campbell um, was the first true multi-eventer that we had in Grenada. Now I know multi-eventing is big in Grenada, decathlon and heptathlon and so on. Not so much now the decathlon, but the heptathlon. And he in 1971, as I said earlier, he won he won uh, bronze in the decathlon. He was rated among the top 10 in the OECS, for many years. His specialties were in javelin and shot put. So that is the measure of the performances and that we had. Let me not forget, before I move on from this, let me not forget Oliver Lake. Oliver Lake, I believe he was from River Road.
Yes, yes.
Oliver Lake won medals in the high jump and triple jump at the Southern Games in the 60s, in middle 60s. He won medals in the high jump and the triple jump. Grenada has produced some excellent athletes long before the new the new stuff was going on. But we should take pride. We should take pride in that, Michael. And I would like to now turn to my presidency, if you don't mind.
All right. Before you go on, the Bob Simpson
Oh yes.
says, "Hi Bobby, good to see you. Still looking like Bobby." Season 3. And you will know Babs because Babs has been involved in
Oh yes, but
particularly netball for
yes, but Bab's younger sister, Jero, was very much involved in the athletic association during my tenure.
yeah.
She was a live wire. She was the go-to person if you wanted something.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that because I tried to get Babs to give me a grand total of the years between, combined total, I should say, herself, her husband, involvement in sports, and now you add her sister,
Oh, yes,
Gerald.
the
Gerald,
great,
no,
great Simpson.
Yeah, who would have added? So they have given a lot of years of service to sports.
Yes, they have, and I hope they'll be recognized one of these days.
Certainly. So we moving on now to your tenure as the president of the Grenada. Well, as we said, it was the amateur.
It became the Grenada Amateur Athletic Association.
Yeah, Athletic Association, and
the cycling people went on their own.
right. So cycling decided that we want to be on our own, but
That's right.
prior to that, there was also the cycling that was involved as part of the Athletic Association.
Yes, and there was a lot of excellent cycling events, both at Gov and St. George's. I mean, cycling was huge, Michael, in the 60s, huge. And again, I would like to just mention.
I know you said you're from Guelph, and every sentence you mention, there's a mention of Guelph. That Guelph had that many outstanding athletes in those early years.
In those early years, remember I mentioned Dorothy Wilson.
Yeah.
I mentioned Willie Julian. I mentioned Donald Pierre. Donald Pierre from Guelph.
Right, I know. Dr. Dunstan Campbell from Guelph.
Dr. Dunstan Campbell from Guelph.
Right, yeah.
I'm saying in the period we're talking about, I mean, that was excellent. We were doing extremely well.
And then the Windsor Park was the mecca of sports in
Windsor Park was the mecca. I mean, it had the best stadium, Michael, in Grenada. Hold on, Michael. Sorry for the interference, Michael. Yes. So Windsor Park had the most beautiful stadium in Grenada at the time. It was a joy to stay on the field and look at the people. The Windsor Park was packed to capacity because Goa people are fierce in the support of sport. Which brings me, Michael, to a book on sporting golf called The Energy of Golf, which was done by Fitzgerald Naka Joseph.
Yeah, we featured it on the program earlier in the year. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this is a very seminal work, and I think anybody who really wants to find out, for example, about cycling, because although it says sporting golf, it also included performances by people who are not from golf. So that the cycling, you get a beautiful chapter on the cycling, and you could follow it, because, as I said before, cycling was excellent in that period in our history. So I'm very proud of Goa. I think you held back from saying it, but Goa people are extremely proud of the parish. I mean, they say we clannish, they say all kinds of things about us, but we're proud. We're proud to be who we are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree that even, and you will agree that too, that junior tenure as president, that the bulk of competition and competitiveness and thing came from the parish of St. John. We had quite a number. I mean, there's names like Sharon and the long distance runners, for example.
Yes.
Quite a number of the long distance runners came from more the Western. So it's either St. John, St. Mark, or St. Patrick, right?
Yeah.
They came from that. They dominated the long distance running. As you indicated, the marathon from Sotels to the I think it used to be to the Esplanade, to sometimes the Esplanade or to the Carnage, for example. Right. And it used to be dominated by the folks of either St. John, either St. Mark, because you had Callistus, Bonaparte, and others. Oh, yeah. And then you had the those guys from St. Patrick, the Rastas, and all of those guys. They used to participate in these events. That was participation, junior tenure. That is what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, because in fact, Michael,
what got that sort of why and how you got that sort of participation in those events during those times?
Well, because Michael, as I told you, when I became president in 91, 92, um, I would have to say that athletics in Grenada had reached a plateau. They had reached a plateau, especially in terms of participation at Carifta. Now, Carifta, as you know, Michael, Carifta has always been the place where every athlete, young athlete, wanted to perform. And so that if you wanted to uh, make your name in track and field, you had to get involved. You had to go to the Caribbean Games. But when I became president, the first thing that struck me, Michael, was that we needed to restructure the entire organization. The track and field needed a transformation, a transfusion of energy, a transfusion of new ideas, because we were just on a plateau at that point in time. And I pulled my team together, and the and I want to stress this, Michael, that whatever happened during my tenure, it could never, whatever successes we had, Michael, could only have been achieved on the basis of a collaborative partnership with the coaches. Coaches make athletes, and they are an integral part of any success that was achieved during that time. I have to especially mention Mr. Conrad Francis and his team of coaches. Well, I'll come back to that. They worked with persistency, dedication, and commitment on the development program. So, which takes me to the development program. It was critically important in that 91, 92 to design a development program that would chart the way forward for the association. So, when I came up with this concept of the massification process. Nobody had ever heard about that, but I mean, this is something that I came up with. Massification just simply meaning getting people to participate en masse in large numbers. So this whole massification process was a way to identify athletic talent throughout the country. So flowing from that concept, we had the outreach program. And the outreach program comprised of weekend sessions held at the various parishes to identify athletes, sprinters, throwers, jumpers, distance runners, etc. And that happened in the pre-season period before the main athletic meet started in those days around January. And so between September and December, we had these weekend sessions. And Michael, I was simply blown away by the response of the young athletes to this thing. And as you said, people from Guelph, people from St. David's. I mean, the young people from St. David's, Michael, they would walk for miles to come to the St. David's ground to participate. And we had the coaches who were available then. They worked with each of these young athletes because they were raw. They were raw. With just depending on natural strength, especially in the throws, shot put, javelin, discus. These young people just came up and threw. They pelt. They didn't shoot. They pelt the the instrument. But the talent that was unearthed, Michael, was phenomenal. The talent, especially, and I had to particularly mention St. David's. And it was no surprise that later on, Denise and Paul and so were able to tap into that. That was absolutely a place that any coach will want to work. St. David. Guelph, as you said earlier, a lot of the long distance people came out of Guelph, St. John. And then, not to leave out the others, St. Patrick's, Grenville, and of course St. George's. But St. George's was the center of all of this. So that the thing was, added to that, when we were the had established the weekend sessions, we decided to do a road racing program, so that we had a road race series during the same period to facilitate the general fitness, Michael, of the athletes. The basis of success in any sport is fitness. So we started a road race series, and I mean, it was amazing to see the numbers that turned out every weekend. The numbers that turned up every weekend were just phenomenal. And then with that happening, Michael, it became clear to us that if you're going to have all these young people coming to participate, you need the coaches. And because, okay, you will help them you show them how to stand to do the shot or the distance or the javelin. You show them how to get on the marks for the sprints. But you needed people who understood the science of coaching and could pass on this entire thing, you know. But let me just back a little bit, and I put that all in the context of the competition, because you have these young people coming out, so you needed competition. Of course, by then the primary and secondary schools had the individual sport meets and so on, and then the parish games were added, Eastern games, Western games, and these were added, and all these were used to sharpen. But all of this was dovetailed to go into the intercall, because intercall was the thing, the best local thing in sport for both under 17 and under 20. And on the basis of performances at those sports, the national team to represent Grenada at the annual Carifta Games, those people were selected. And of course, the cherry here, was for some of the athletes, the better athletes, to be seen by some of the American coaches who attended the Caribbean Games, and to recommend scholarships for these people. Um, so, Caribbean Games, well, you heard Mr. Victor Ashby on your program, and it's, the enthusiasm and that you got from him just demonstrated that Carifta was a fantastic national event. I think more people attended those games than any other sport in Grenada. And the competition was fierce. And that's putting it mildly. It was fierce compared to what we had as when I went to presentation in 1954. I believe an attempt was made to have the first intercall between PVC and GBSS, the only two boys' schools at the time. An attempt was made to have the intercall between those two, because I participated in those games. But, well, the usual names, Hubin, George Fletcher, and so on, Simeon Green, and these people participated. Of course, this time competing for the various schools. And in fact, there was an incident at one of these meets that led to the demise of the games at that time. I will not go through. I will not go through that. But there's a very and something that happened during one of the events, and the response of both sides, DSS and college, it led to an impasse virtually. So I think the games were abandoned for a long time until they restarted again. I'm not sure if the restart was in '65. Michael, you could help me here. The restart of the intercall was '65 or '86?
Yeah, somewhere in
Yeah,
the
65,
60, the mid
65.
'60s, I think.
Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, this was the task that we set out. My executive team set out to achieve. And the most important thing at this point, getting all that participation and all that interest and so on, we needed a cadre of coaches, certified coaches. So I needed to do some forge some relationships with other
Okay.
people in the region because we
All right. Just before you go on that point there, because I know it's similar to an outreach program. Dean Knott is saying, hello, Mr. Benjamin, looking good. And
yeah.
that's Dean Knott. And you must, if I call the name, I just have to call the first name and you'll know, Vida. Yeah, Vida Bruno Victor is saying, I'm glad to see Bobby. I'm very glad to see Bobby and to hear him speak, especially about the outreach program. Don't forget St. Mark. In that program, he did a very good work a very good work that was copied. Yes, that was copied by other associations. Well done, Bobby.
Thanks, Vida.
And
Thanks, Vida.
finally, saying Mr. Benjamin was a very good sports administrator. He was even a chairman of Calypso, of Carnival also. Yes, Carnival also. So of course, the cultural aspect of it kicked in. But Vida is also remembering that you had a program in the parish of St. Mark, and that was copied by other associations, Bobby.
But the thing is, I'm saying that effort, that effort was a joint effort. Every member of the executive and the people I would be of that executive, that first executive, I would like to pinpoint um, was Vida Bruno, as she was then. Vida Bruno was the general secretary, the best general secretary that I knew at the time. I mean, we were lucky to have Vida in the Athletic Association. I mean, she took care of the administrative work. And Tira Grant was the treasurer for many years. Of course, my good friend and brother from St. Patrick's, Mr. Glean Neville, who was a wonderful support as vice president. And I mean, I would like to mention these people. They were part of the engine room. They were part of the engine room that got these things done. And whatever I came up with as a suggestion, it was discussed, and very often I got the support of the executive because we were on a progressive course, and everybody could see that, and it was going to be for the benefit of everybody. And and as Vida said, um, the program, especially the outreach program and the road series, that was kept by many administrations, the athletic association, that was allowed. It continued because that was the foundation, Michael. If you don't have a foundation, you can't have anything else. So yeah, that is what happened. I think all my executive did a fantastic job, and it was a collaborative effort. It wasn't Bobby Benjamin. So I decided, realizing that we needed proper coaching, professional coaching. I approached the president of the NACAC Association, North American, Central American, and Caribbean Association. um, Dr. Amadeo Francis. And Dr. Amadeo Francis responded immediately to my request to help us, to find, locate facilitators for the coaching. And as a result of that, Michael, we had before in 1991, we had the first 92, we had the first coaching program level one. We went to level two and level three subsequently, and people, people later on their own went to level four and level five. But that proved to be the linchpin because after that, Michael, the 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 improvement in the times, distances, height at intercall was phenomenal. We were producing some fantastic young athletes because the coaches were doing a great job. The coaches were doing a great job, and I don't want to leave with anybody, but Denise Williams, Devon George, Anthony George, Abraham Patrick, Patrick Simmons, Colin Peters, um, Albert Joseph and Paul Phillip. I mean, those have come to mind immediately. I am sure I left out some people, but the thing is that Michael, no president could have expected to get such a response from a team, and I have to give Conrad kudos. I have to give Conrad kudos for taking the leadership role in this coaching program, in this coaching exercise. At one point, Conrad was the only level three from Grenada in the region, in the OECS. So, I mean, he turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful coach, not only on paper, but also in terms of, being able to impart that information and knowledge to the young ones who were under his charge. The other coaches worked very well with him. I mean, it was an excellent team effort. It was a great team effort. Um, and then let me just go back a little bit to say why it was so important for us to put that system to identify the athletes, to provide the constant training for them during the off season, during in the preseason, and then the coaching, and all that was important because we needed to produce a whole new set of athletes. We needed a new cycle in performance. First at intercall and then at character, which is the acid test in terms of any development program. You have to measure your development program in terms of progress you make at character. Now, for example, when I took over in the early 1990s, Grenada's highest position was fifth, no, sixth, with 5 medals, and we were placed below Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, Bermuda, Guadeloupe, Martinique. We were below all of these countries. Um, Now, we were still winning medals, Michael. We were still winning medals because the javelin we had what has been referred to as the Grenada javelin machine. The Grenada javelin machine. Between we got 9 gold medals and 4 of those were won by the phenomenal Selwyn Smith between 1992 and 1995. Other people who won medals were Kim Fullerton, Merrill Peters, Prudence Lewis, Hilarious Frank, Nasha Belfont. But the thing was, what future did the sport have for Grenada? Because you can't win a sport, or you can't develop a program purely by producing javelin throwers. I mean, I think the javelin throwers had a good example in our own esteemed javelin thrower. Michael, help me.
You're referring to in terms
No, no,
of
no.
recent?
In that period,
Tr- we had
Modest.
Trevor Modest.
Every young javelin thrower wanted to be another Trevor Modest. So that was an inspiration for the javelin thrower. And I know personally that Trevor worked with Selvin Smith and was of great assistance to Selvin Smith. But you can't continue a program just based on producing javelin throwers. So we needed to get a more balanced program. So Conrad and I sat down with the rest of the coaching staff and so on, and we talked a lot about having a balanced program, producing sprinters, jumpers, long and middle distance runners, quarter milers, hurdlers. To do that, we had to intensify we had another one or two level ones up and level twos. Also, people from the Caribbean were participating now that they heard about the program. People from Trinidad and St. Vincent and people in the Eastern Caribbean were sending their people to the training program. The level one, because you got certified. At the end of the program, you were certified as a level one, level two, or level three, and you could go anywhere in the region and coach.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
yeah, I was saying, but I know we want to just take a quick break there so that
yeah.
in the half
Okay,
hour
yeah.
we want to
Yes.
just take a quick break and
Fine.
you'll
Yeah,
be
okay.
right back. Okay, so Mr. Bobby Benjamin will be right back with us. But just to give you an update as to what he was, the Intercall, just some facts about Intercall. Actually started, documented in 1965 with the Anglican High School and the GBSS winning the first two, the first two championships. 65. There wasn't any in 66. I don't know why it's not documented, but it shows 65, the Anglican High School, the girls, the GBSS, the boys. Then on to 67, Anglican High School again, the girls, GBSS, the boys. And then in 68, SAS end up coming and win the girls' title with GBSS, the boys. So the first 3 years of Intercall, 65, 67, and 68, it was the GBSS and Anglican High School, and then SAS. In 69, Anglican High School retained the title in 69, but there wasn't any boys title given. Again, I'm going based on the documents that the principal Grenada Games Association, Grenada Secondary Schools Games Associations. I always try to get them to clarify, and I don't know why they could not have said exactly what was the reason why there wasn't any boys champion that year in 1969, but the girls went to Anglican High School. Then in 1970, no girls, but there was the boys, the Presentation Brothers College. They won their first Intercall championship, that's PBC, in 1970. Their first, again, it's according to the archives, some may want to dispute that, and over the years, in 87 again, when the Boca Secondary School won the girls, there was no boys title. Again, we do not know why there wasn't any. In 2005, we know there wasn't any Intercall that year. 2005, yeah, it was 2005. Not that year. So there are some that actually missing, and we still do not know why. Why there was the girls, the boys. Why there was the boys, not the girls. But quite a lot to decipher in the and hopefully in the new year when we go into the actual Intercall, we'll get some clarification on that. I know some of the folks who are watching and listening may be able to remember certain things, and they may be able to help us with answers to some of the missing data regarding the intersecondary school athletic championships over the years. Started in 1965, Anakin High School, the girls, the GBSS, the boys, 67, no 66 again, as I'm saying. Then on to 68, 69, 70, no girls champion in that year. There was 71, 72, 73. There were no championships in the years 74 and 75. I may want to assume it was because of the turmoil, the political turmoil in Grenada during those years. Well, Bobby Benjamin is back with us. Probably he might be able to tell us what some of the reasons why we had no intercall championships in the 74-75 period in particular.
Michael, I'm not sure that I understand. I could unravel the politics of what is going on there.
Yeah.
I would prefer to leave that alone.
Well, I say in the new year we'll look.
Let's just continue that with the mandate that the coaching team was given was to create sprinters, jumpers, long and middle distance runners, quarter milers, hurdlers. But Michael, as you know from your experience, in track and field, like in any other sport, performance sport, it takes arguably 3 to 5 years of coaching before the performances of these athletes begin to show any real change. It takes a while. It takes a while to, for a young athlete to change habits, to change, the way they stand to throw an instrument, or the way they, the whole question of you have to train them. They have to understand the mechanics. They have to actually learn a lot of mechanics, right? But it takes a while before that happens. So accordingly, our young charges were slow in coming up the block. So we talk about I took over in 1991, 92. Nothing happened in 93. We changed the constitution. 94, we introduced the coaching program. Or maybe a little bit before that, 93, 94, we introduced the training, the coaches training program. And then, it took a while for 1994 to produce anything. But in 1998, Hazel Ann Regis won a bronze medal in the under 17 girls, 400 meters. I mean, that also in the under 17 girls, Daniela Abraham won silver in the girls 3,000 meters. Now, Shamir Thomas burst on the scene with gold in the under 17 shot put and silver in the discus. Now, Michael, we'll place this against the background that the under 17 boys had failed to win a medal in 1995, as did the under 17 girls in 1996. And also in 1998, it was the first year since 1991 that Grenada had not won the under 20 boys javelin. So, I mean, that was a real breakthrough. And I have to add to that, Tishara George won a bronze as well in the under 17 400. So in 1998, Hazel Ann Regis, Daniela Abraham, Shamir Thomas, Tishara George, they broke through that barrier that we were facing in terms of the quarter milers and so on. So certainly we broke through that barrier, and also the 3,000 meters, the middle distance. So that was very, very encouraging, Michael. I mean, we were happy about that because it happened just about the time we thought it might have happened. And with the athletes, we thought it might have happened. In 1999, the under 17 boys won 4 gold medals. 5,000 meters, Kendall Simon. Javelin, Densley Joseph. Shot put and discus, Shamiri Thomas. Now, a new star was born with Shamiri. Shamiri was a star. He was a star. The under 17 girls also won 4 silver medals. In the 400 meter, Ishara George, 800 meters, 1500 meters, and 3000 meters, Daniela Abraham. So let me do this again. So the under 17 girls won silver medals. Uh, so that would have been yeah. So that Shara George won silver medal in the 400 meters, and the 800 meters, 1500 meters, and 3000. Daniela Abrams won silver medals. Now Stephanie Ferguson won a bronze in that same year in the 3000 meters. So we could see the changes were taking place, Michael, in the medals, what medals we were winning, and the under 17 girls and under 17 boys started to get back into their own after the bad showing in 1995 and 1996, where they didn't win a single medal. So that takes us to 2000, the last year of my administration. I'm just chuckling at a comment I see there. Yeah. Um, so 2000 was the last year of my presidency. And in 2000, Grenada hosted the Caribbean Games, the first OECS country to host that esteemed event. And Michael, what a response did we get from the athletes? You couldn't expect more. Of course, they're in front of their home crowd, and it was important for us to do well. Absolutely important for us to do well. So what happened? In the end, we achieved fourth position. We moved from ninth position in 1992, 91, 92. We moved from ninth position with 4 medals to fourth position with a total of 18 medals. 5 gold in under 20 boys, javelin, Alroy Peters, 400 meters, under 20 girls, Hazelland, under 17 boys, long jump, Leon Jordan. This is a big first, Michael, because I don't think he'll ever won a long jump event. Under 20 boys before that, subject to correction. So Leon George, long jump, javelin on 17 boys, Denzel Joseph. Hold on. Yeah, Leon George, the javelin under 17. Hold on. It's five. One, two, 5 gold in the 20 boys. All right, Peters, and then yeah. Overall we won 5 gold. But the under 20
Yeah,
boys javelin, Peters in the 440.
it was one of the best showing for Grenada during
It was. I'll come to that. So 400 meters, Hazelland, under 17 boys, long jump, javelin, Densley Joseph, and under 17 javelin girls, Natalia Vincent. I mean, this was the start of the Natalia Vincent show because she won 4, I think, consecutive javelin gold medals. Uh, I mean, she is undoubtedly one of the stars of the Calvista Games under my watch.
Another golf girl, right?
But of course, I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that, Michael, because no, we all say got people bias. um, 7 silver medals, seven on the 17, uh, 1500 meters, Stephanie Ferguson. On the 17 boys, 1500 meters, Trevon Baptiste. On the 20 girls, javelin, Bassie Mitchell. Boys on the 25,000 meters, Kendall Simon. On the 20 heptathlon, Sherwin Merriman. On the 20 boys, javelin, Kevin Francis. On the 20 boys, shot put, Shamir. I am sure that Denise and Mrs. Ferguson, they're smiling because St. David's was in the house. St. David's were in the house. And I mean, and doing exceptionally well. I would just like to say something worthy of note, Michael, is that the Sherwin Merriman silver in the heptathlon spawned victories in the heptathlon. In 2001, Kieran Francis; 2002, Eileen Lett; 2003, Akaido Noel; 2004, Noel Phillip; Joel Phillip; 2005, Joel Phillip; 2006, Joel Phillip. He was making this event his own. 2007, Kurt Felix. So I believe, Michael, that 2000 Character Games saw the association beginning to fulfill the vision that we had for more balanced development in the sport. For the first time, we had a gold medal in long jump. We had Merriman in silver in the heptathlon. Another first for us, and Grenada had the first sprint medal was won by Sean Lambert. Now, Sean Lambert is a young man that he had a lot of hopes for. Even in the days of the young Trinidadians. Um, Help me,
Darrell Brown.
Darrell Brown, and what's the other one? Yeah, the other one. Darrell Brown and okay, that will come. But Sean had shown he had shown a lot of talent and a lot of expectations from Sean. But that didn't come through until the the 2000 character game where he won a bronze in the under 20 boys. But we did a double for Grenada because Kanisha Joseph in an under 17 girls also won a bronze. So we won two medals in the 100 meters, one boys, one girls. Now, Michael, our coaches could breathe a sigh of relief. The Grenada track machine, and those are my words, the Grenada track machine was on fire. We were on fire. And we were going to take the heat to our competitors in the region. And I must say that for a while, we continued to do that. For a while, we continued to do that. So, in not wanting to steal anybody's thunder, in Caribbean 2001, Grenada had its best year, placing second with 8 gold and 7 silver. And the reason why I mentioned that is because although I was not president, still the athletes who won the medals came from under my watch. So that with 8 gold and 7 silver, Shamini Thomas won double gold in the shot and discus. Ewan Francis won gold in the javelin and heptathlon. Natalia Vincent continued her victory run in the Dublin. Silver medals were won by Kendall Simon, 5,000 meters, Aline led heptathlon, uh, um, Sharon Batiste, 1,500 meters, under 17 boys. So, Michael, that was the zenith of the hard work that my executive members and myself, that is what we were working for. And it was wonderful to see um, this coming to fruition because, Michael, when you're working hard for something and it finally begins to happen, it is a great feeling of satisfaction. On reflection, Michael, the period 1991 to 1992, from that period, 91, 92 to 2000, it's a relatively short time, a relatively short period of time, just under 10 years. And I humbly submit, Michael, that what we achieved can only be described as remarkable as we move from ninth position with 4 medals to fourth position with 18 medals. We have restructured the organization and we have established a development structure that proved to be successful and largely followed since then. We have laid down a template for future success.
Um, i- Interesting enough, Mr. B, because I wanted to get in as we see the time moving there into what you will see now, because I mean, so much have changed from since then to now, in terms of the athletes, the resources available, both for athletes and for technical, coaching and all these sort of things, the technical aspect of athletics, and there's even more competition available now to that extent. So what I'm saying, what do you see is really needing, in terms of ensuring that we do exploit the true and real potential of our athletes in going forward, in that there's so many challenges now that there is for example, there's an athletic stadium, for example. um, then they well Even during your time there were the scholarships and thing, but even with scholarships and to some extent challenges in terms of scholarships, what should be the thinking of our sports administrators, especially in athletics, to ensure that, as I said, we exploit the true potential of our athletes?
Michael, I'll put it frankly, we dropped the ball. We dropped the ball because after, well, we went on to win. Joel Phillips continued with his exploits, and we went on to win some 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. We continued to do well, but the thing is, in 2017, Michael, Grenada came 14th in Caribbean. No gold medals. No gold medals. One bronze, one silver. I mean, what had happened? We had a stadium. We had Kirani James. We had Bartholomew. We had, I mean, what had happened? We had Kirani James winning the World Championships in 2011. The youngest person ever, 19, to do that. And he went on the next year, 2012, to win the 400-meter championships at the Olympics in a time of 43.94. I mean, Kirani, that should have been the basis, Michael, of Grenada should have taken off and head to the clouds after that.
But then there is the argument sometimes that it's not just about winning medals, but about the performances. Yes, I know when it comes to Carifta and these sort of things, it's all for some. It's all about winning a medal, being on the podium, and then there are those who will argue that not everyone could be, but you can see potential, you can see improvements, you can see progress. How do you argue that?
Michael, I think, as I said earlier, we dropped the ball. We lost our way. We moved away from the fundamentals. We moved away from the identification of athletes. We moved away from the outreach program. We moved away from the just keeping our athletes prepared and also letting them. But even if you say, Michael, that it's not about winning alone, I accept that. It's not about winning. I should tell my athletes that all the time. But it's not only about winning, but it's about representing, representing, um, representing your country. What's the most important thing that any young man could do, a young athlete could do? And but I'm saying to you, let me say it, the administrations since then have dropped the ball. They went away from the basics, and without the foundation, because it's true you produce athletes. So a lot of the athletes that came, some of them 2000, 2001, 2002. Some of them still came. Well, they came over, they flowed over from my time. But where were the young ones? Were we nurturing the young ones? Were we encouraging the young ones? Were we going into the trenches, going back into Gov and St. David's and St. Mark's and these places, finding the young athletes? I don't think we did that, Michael. It's not any science, Michael. It's simple. We dropped the ball, we moved away from the basics, and we paid the price. When I saw that Grenada came 14th at Carifta in 2017, I could not believe my eyes. So I mean, that speaks for itself. That speaks for itself. But before Michael, before our time runs out, I would just like to mention, you know, um, there's some young people that we amassed a total of around 60 medals. Uh, um, During that time, and 17 of them were gold medals. Now, we, I, Bobby Benjamin, had encountered some amazing young people between 1991 and 1992 and 2000. Charmaine Ross, who were just going out. Geraldine McCrean, Daniela Abraham, Hazelland Regis, Buckles, Kishara George, Kim Fullerton, Seven Smith, Shami Thomas, Prudence Lewis, Sandra Scott, Shiva George, Nasha Belfon, Natalia Vincent, Alroy Peters, Hilary Frank, Kendall Simon, Dempsey Joseph, Stephanie Ferguson, Leon George, Trevon Batiste, Kieran Francis, Shorin Merriman, Kanisha Joseph. I mean, the utmost praise is due to these young people for their dedication. Because, Michael, I was an athlete myself, and I know the effort that you had to put out. I know the sacrifices that you have to make, that your parents have to make. So, the thing is that we sacrifice. I was taught by my guardians. My mother was in Trinidad, so my guardian in Grenada, my guardians in Grenada, more than one. they instilled in me the virtues of dedication, hard work, stick to itiveness, never saying never. And that is necessary. We have to instill that in your athletes. It's not just about winning. If you do that, you end up winning medals. But those values should be stamped. Those values should be stamped on the psyche of our young chargers. I've been away from Grenada for a long time, Michael. I've been away from Grenada since 2004. But after that, um, um, I tried to keep abreast, as the best way I could, from afar, um, what is going on. But when you're not on island, you can't feel the pulse, Michael. So I really can't say, you know, um, with any certainty that this, apart from what I've said, that this went wrong, that went wrong, the other went wrong. Because not about what went wrong, it's about how we correct what goes awry. It's not about going wrong. Wrong implies that people get blamed and all that. I'm not about that. I'm not about blame. But I'm about make when mistakes are made, people acknowledge it. People don't get arrogant and pretend that what is happening is not happening, or get upset if people make adverse comments on what is happening. That is only going to lead to chaos and destruction. So you know, Michael, I feel very satisfied at what has been achieved under my watch. I think that we did remarkably well, and some of our athletes went on to do even better, like the great Mrs. Buckles, who went on to do very well at college. She did quite well at the CSC championships. Um, she won a silver in the CSC games. She won a silver in the Pan Am Games. She won a silver medal in the CSC championships in the 4x4 with Kishara George, Jackie Ann Morin, uh, Nisha Bernard Thomas. Um, Hazelton went on before that. She had won the, well, of course, we know she had won the silver in the 400 meters, and she won the gold. Um, she then went on to Central Arizona College, where she won the junior title for the 400 meters. She became the two-time final eight at the NCAA championship for Louisiana State University. Um, Kishara um, did well as well in the hurdles. Kishara, she not only won silver medals and a bronze on the 400 meter under 17, she won medals. She won the Middle Tennessee State University, two outdoors conference titles, one indoor conference title in the 400 meters, one indoor conference in the 400 meters hurdles, and her 400-meter hurdles OECS record, established in 2004. I think it still stands. I'm not sure. Maybe Kishara could call us and tell us that, whether it still stands. Um, Other people, I'm focusing only on, because we also had OECS.
Yeah, because we have while we had some of them on the program already, in the new year there's a slot where some of them will be on the program together. In
Right.
fact,
Oh, that'd be fantastic, Michael.
yeah, we have some of them who will be there, like Hazelland and Kishara and others. As a group, they will be on the program to discuss the exploit during that time. Mr. Adrian Mitchell, that spaceman, my Spanish teacher at PBC in the 60s, learned a lot about leadership from the great team of sporting teachers at the PBC, Fletcher, Gibbs, Bobby, the brothers, and others. Um, is Mr. Mitchell, that spaceman Mitchell, saying that you were his Spanish teacher?
Yes. I hope you remember a few words still. Oh yes, I did teach Spanish at presentation. I also
Okay.
taught history, and I think I did some literature, and yeah.
Well, that's our former sports minister, Adrian Spaceman Mitchell, and
Yeah, 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 yeah. He did a good job as Minister of Sport. I'm
Fletcher, Gibbs, Bobby, the
Well,
brothers.
he's talking about George Fletcher there, the older Fletcher,
Okay.
who was a chemistry teacher, science teacher at PVC. At the same time, I was there because I was the youngest teacher. Um, I was the youngest teacher, and then um, we had Mr. Gibbs. We had Mr. Gibbs. We had Mr. Hugh Wayne. Hugh Wayne I talked about earlier. Hugh Wayne was one of the great masters, sports masters. Leslie Clouden. We had a lot of good young teachers at presentation at the time.
All right. So Benjamin, what would you say were among the reasons that in those days you're speaking about in the 60s and the 70s and recent as your time during your presidency, the attitude of the athletes then compared to the attitude of the athletes now, and I'm still bringing into focus the resources available to them. It's so much of an ease for them now. What would you say, um, you know, actually spurred those and encouraged and motivated the athletes then? I mean, with less.
Look, the motivation, I cannot explain the mechanics, but because motivation is something internal. But when we had the first few weeks, Michael, of the outreach program, I mean, Dennis will tell you, Dennis Williams will tell you, the young people came from the hills of St. David. They had to walk 3, 4 miles to come to get trained, to learn how to throw the discus, the shot, the whatever, to learn how to sprint. Go off, I mean, the buses, whenever we went to Guelph, I mean, for example, the Guelph buses, so in terms of the road races, I mean, you got the most buses from Guelph, from St. Mark's, you know, from St. David. There was a natural thing in the air. People just wanted. Okay. Let's put it this way, Michael. There was a hunger because there's not very much happening at that level of an administration, and somebody brings in a fresh idea that appeals to the young people, it's going to be a success. The young people all throughout the island came out in the droves, in the numbers. And that went on for quite a while. It wasn't just 1991, 92, 93, 94, 95. And I mean, it went on. And then, of course, I must make this point. I must make this point. By this time, our coaches um, had started to tap the veins in those young athletes, the discus people, the shot put people, the 400-meter people. I mean, they started to tap the veins. They started to tap the veins of the athlete. And the enthusiasm that Conrad and his team had, that enthusiasm, um, how to put it, it pervaded the athletes. the athletes wanted to succeed, and the enthusiasm that the coaches had in teaching them and coaching them, that passed on to them. I can't explain the mechanics.
I know you can't explain, but Bob Simpson is saying these athletes worked hard for themselves, and as Hazeland said, for their country. Some athletes now, very early, want even before they start to perform. The culture has changed, and I assume it's not just track and field. Babs is a netball coach, so she will at least experience that. She can tell you that, and when she speaks about athletes, she's speaking generally, sportsmen, sportswomen, and as she says, even before they start to perform, they want something, and in essence, she's saying the culture has changed,
But Babs is absolutely correct, Michael, that the culture changed because the culture changed from having to work hard for what you want to give me no. It changed. It started to change then. To what we have now is what is in it for me? What is in this thing for me? You ask young people to come and train, leave their mother house and go to the park to go and train. And the athlete will tell you today, but what am I getting for that? What am I getting out of it? Because we have an instant society today where everybody wants everything right now. No, 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 no. We can't wait. We can't wait 2 or 3 years to get a little coaching and begin to get better and win a couple of events and get better and win some more events. That takes too much time. It takes too much time here, Sloan and them. It took them 10 years. Or more for them to become what they have become. So you're right. I think it is one central reason, Michael, is the culture change.
Roger Bayer is asking about cycling, but even before Roger Bayer, and let me say good afternoon to you, Roger. Well, Toro was saying they say Hugh Bain was a legend. The man went and pole vault for Grenada using a bamboo pole. Toro always getting his,
I don't know where Toro get that one from, but
Toro always add something. All right, Toro. Yeah, but Roger is talking about cycling because we know that cycling was part of the the whole aspect of
yes.
And Roger, cycling is also something we have to talk about in the new year. So I'm glad you mentioned that. We want to talk about it separate because I know there has been some aspects of cycling, albeit just road cycling, but we know that cycling was a very exciting part of track and field in years gone by. We even part of the school sports, cycling.
I remember cycling.
Everyone look forward to cycling.
I remember good protein and get protein and I mean people like that riding at GBS Sports. But
even at the Winter Games,
Yeah. But let me say to Roger Bayer, and let me congratulate Roger for the excellent work over the years that he's done with cycling. And the thing, I mean, I'm much older than Roger, but in the days that I mentioned in the very beginning of my presentation, cycling was one of the most exciting events. People came to watch cycling, not to watch 100 meters and 400 meters. Yeah, they want to watch that too, but they came to look at cycling, and cycling was extremely vibrant in Grenada in the 60s. And I think to some extent the 70s, and we were good at it. Grenadian cyclists were top of the pile, And so I would love to hear Roger's presentation in the new year on cycling, because Grenada was one of the best cycling nations in the region. Okay. I mean, we couldn't compare with the Central Americans. I mean, they were very good. But Grenada was the best after that. We were the best after these people.
Some more comments coming in. A lot of athletes now, not all, want everything to come easy. They do not have the patience to go through the progression it takes to get to where they want to be. That's Joel Phillip. Salisha Marisho is saying so true, plus the glutz and the glam. Well, Salisha, she knows all about that, and she's one of our athletes who would have gotten and go on and move from one stage to the other. Well qualified in her field. Thank you, Salisha. You played your part in track and field, representing the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, and then using that as a stepping stone for your educational pursuit. Dennis Williams is saying, very good program, Michael and Mr. Benjamin. It's a blessing to see you, Bobby, sharing so much important information. I must leave now. Other duty calls, and I hope, Denise, that come next Saturday there could be the mini meet. There should have been a mini meet this weekend, but for some reason it was, or last weekend I think it was put off. But there's one scheduled for the coming week. And David is saying it's a pity when our stadium was built, accommodation was not made for cycling.
Yes.
Except that, no, there has been an argument. I'll get back to that in a moment. We have to change the mindset of our younger athletes. The whole aspect, I know, and it has been something that has been discussed over and over, Bobby, but I don't think while the accommodation for cycling should have been made, not necessarily in the stadium, because they have moved away from the sort of velodrome, like how, for example, at the stadium in Kingston, Jamaica, and also in Bridgetown, Barbados, with the velodrome, the concrete velodrome. Right. Now, cycling is more moving towards the indoor velodrome, like what you have in Trinidad, for example. Right. Gone are the days where you have the velodrome on the outside, the perimeter of the actual stadium. What should have been considered is probably having a home for cycling, some sort of indoor facility. Because if you want to get regional and international cycling programs and things like that, so I think that is where that's the way you have to go. But as I indicated, cycling is part of the feature in the new year, and I'm hoping that folks like Roger and others will be part of that program. I have to reach out to Roger to confirm those things. We want to hear what it is.
But Michael, I want to make one last intervention, and that has to do with what we talked about earlier with the young people, the attitude of the young people, and so on. But Michael, a lot of us adults contributed to that, because as soon as a young person won a medal, we call them a star. As soon as somebody score a goal, 2 or 3 goals, we call them a star. As soon they start to wear bling, they start to wear gold chain, and because we the adults didn't emphasize that one race or one event doesn't make you a star. We didn't insist that that longevity, that you had to I mean, I think I think Joel was saying, the persistence, having the long view of what you're doing. So when we the adults, as soon as they win 1 or 2 races, we call them a star. So what you think will happen? They start thinking as though they're stars. And we the adults have to accept the blame for some of that.
So what do you think makes a star? A sporting star?
Yes, Michael. I get a funny feeling that there's a bouncer.
Well, there are those who are listening and watching and may figure that, what is Mr. Benjamin speaking about? I am a star. I'm a sporting star. So what do you consider to be a star?
Okay, let me answer, Michael. A star is someone whose performances have continued over a period of time. So that, Michael Johnson, the star. right? Um, Michael Holding is a star. Um, People whose performances they have maintained excellence over a period of time. Yes, then the consistency is there. You could see the true excellence in what he's doing. But somebody win one or two races, it might be a flash in the pan. It might be a flash in the pan. It might have to do with the quality of the competitors. So stardom is something that you achieve over a period of time. There's no such thing as instant stardom.
Hazel is saying, Mr. Benjamin, I totally agree with you. Miss Williams always reminded us that showing off is not part of our values.
Exactly. You're not on the field to show off because you see, sport is a very punishing thing, Michael. Today you do well, tomorrow you don't do so well. You beat somebody today, and the person will beat you tomorrow. The condition didn't necessarily change, but the attitude would have changed. It's who wants it the most. I think the GBSS anthem, or it's the prize for the one who earns it, who wants it most. It's not you in it because well, you look good when you put on your tracksuit and whatnot, and all the girls come at the games and you get hugs and kisses and that is part of it. I enjoyed that too. I mean, I had young boys holding my boots when I was going to football when GBS was playing against college. I had young boys holding my boots, to the park. I couldn't walk to the park with my boots. My boots are special. But you don't let that get to your head, Michael. You don't let that get to your head.
Created some laughter there among the folks are actually laughing because I think they can they themselves would have probably experienced that but as you say, you don't let it get to your head. Performance is what matters at that time and not
Yes,
the
and Michael, each performance is a different performance. Every performance is different. No two performances are the same.
All right. Mr. B, we're getting ready to wrap up now. We're just about 3 minutes short of time, but I want you to leave with at least what sort of message would you leave with your the young sportsmen and sportswomen, and even a word to our administrators. Going especially looking forward to 2021 and all that will come with it.
To our administrators, my fellow administrators, stick to the plan, stick to the basics, lay the foundation. And when you have a foundation, you can build. And don't forget that it's a continuous process. You have to continue to build. Even if you have success at one level, you have to go back and continue to build. It's a building exercise. To the young athletes, please, it's about performance. It's about your own satisfaction that you get from your performance. But more than anything else, your performance is about your country, especially when you're representing your country. You are representing Grenada, the flag. When the anthem plays and you hear flag going up, you get goose pimples because that's what it is about. It's about country. It's about patriotism. That's what it's about. All the other things will fall by the way. So administrators, do your work. Do your work. Don't drop the ball again. You do your work. Um, um, Continue with building the platforms. Continue with the basics and the outreach programs and the road racing programs and continue with that. That is the basis of the success. It's certainly the basis of the success under my tenure. So hard work, um, and the young people, you have to learn to be patriotic, and you have to learn to be your best self. You want to produce the best of yourself. Yes.
Thank you very much. And Clem Deputy is saying, when young men carry your boots, says you may not have reached stardom, but had earned their respect.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Well
Thank
said.
you. Thank you. That's what happened. That is what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well said, Cliff. And Hazel is saying, thank you so much, Mr. Benjamin. You're an inspiration to us all. I want to thank you very much to Mr. B for being part of the program. It has been long in waiting. And I want to extend season's greetings to you. Merry Christmas. We have gone through quite a bit for 2020. I know some people will say that they can't recall if there was a 2020. From 2019, we skipped to 2021. That's just a little funny.
Well, that is just idle
Yeah,
talk.
that
But
just
Michael, I have to thank you for inviting me to be on this program. I want to say again, Michael, you're doing a fantastic job. When I listened to the program with Mr. Ashby, and you said that you had done 67 other programs, I mean that is an amazing achievement. And I hope that you get recognized for that somehow. I know, Michael, you were the first to say that you're not doing it for recognition. You're not doing it for that because you love Grenada, and that's what you're doing. And I mean, many years I should look forward to your postings to know what is happening in sport. Whether it's athletics, cricket, football, whatever it was, whether West Indies was involved or Caribbean was involved, you were keeping us abreast. And I have to thank you for that. And it's very often people they don't know the facts and they say all kinds of things. But I'm saying to you, continue doing what you're doing, Michael, and let me reciprocate and say that I wish you and your wonderful family, especially your lovely wife and children, season's greetings, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, and that please don't allow strangers to come into your house. Only immediate family, let them come into your homes, because Mr. COVID is not a joker. Mr. COVID is killing. Mr. COVID almost killed 300,000 people in the United States of America already. So please, people, and this is for everybody who is listening, please be careful, wear your masks, practice social distancing, and make sure that you wash your hands and regularly and so on, because you know that is what's saving lives. And for the older people like me, one note to the young people, some advice. Young people must understand that when they take the COVID home, they will cause the death of their grandmother, the great grandmother, and the uncle, the aunt. That's what you're doing. So please, people, do what you have to do. Everybody listening, happy Christmas and a wonderful 2021.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Mr. B. That's Mr. Bobby Benjamin. I want to thank you for being part of our program. As I indicated, it has been long in the waiting. And thank you also to all our viewers for being part of our program next Saturday. Obviously, it's an open discussion. It was our final guest on the Saturday Sports program for December and for 2020. We will tool and we will return in 2021 with guests on the Saturday's sports special. But on Thursday, we have another guest. And then on Saturday, we have our final program, which will be an open discussion, which, every month we have this open discussion. Well, this is the one for December. This is the final one. So once again, I want to thank you for viewing, and don't forget to join us on Thursday. It's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7:30 Eastern Caribbean time. And then on Saturday, it's from 1 o'clock Eastern time, which is 2 o'clock Eastern Caribbean time, for another Saturday Sports Special, where we'll be having an open discussion. But until then, as I always say, stay positive, test negative. Thank you very much for viewing, and we'll see you on Thursday.